Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And I'm willing to bet that you've already got a pretty good idea where this introduction is going. But 55 episodes in, there's just no way that we could abandon this tradition. Yes, welcome back to the expansive, frozen lands of Skyrim. This carefully crafted RPG may be approaching its 8th birthday, but the Elder Scrolls V was just so meticulously detailed by Bethesda that even today, it's still possible for new things to pop up and wow players. So, enough dilly-dallying, you all know where this is heading. Sit back and relax, as we jump right into our 55th installment of 10 tiny details you may still have missed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Starting off, the Rift is Skyrim's southeasternmost province, dominated by beautiful aspen forests and some not-so-beautiful corrupt criminal factions. The region's sigil is a fairly unelaborate pair of crossed daggers. These symbols are plastered everywhere here, on banners, on flags, on guard shields, all over the place. But have you ever wondered what they mean? Well, the Book of Crossed Daggers, written by a Dwenon Windell, tells the story of Riften's more recent history in the Fourth Era. In it, the author explains that in the year 98, just about 100 years prior to the events of Skyrim, the Hold's Jarl was assassinated and replaced with a ruthless and evil man named Osgun Crossed Daggers, who would go on to rule for the next 30 years with an iron fist, brutally oppressing the locals and levying massive taxes that he would use to fund the construction and maintenance of this lavish palace he built. About 30 years into his rule, the people had had enough, and in fact overwhelmed the local guards, setting fire to Osgun's great home while he was still inside. While the ensuing blaze did kill Osgun, it was also left uncontained, and the fire saw most of Riften destroyed. Mr. Windell concludes his book by stating that it would take another 5 years to rebuild the regional capital, and even then, many fear that Riften will never again re-achieve its former glory. So, a somber conclusion, but this book does seem to imply that the crossed daggers we see so prominently displayed in this hold are a nod to Jarl Osgun. Perhaps during his rule, he ordered that the sigil be changed to reflect his surname. Or maybe after the destruction of the city, the survivors thought it would be a fitting emblem. Whatever happened, I guess it's just a good thing Osgun had a last name as cool and tough as Cross Daggers and not Kitten Snuggler or something. Next on our list, the Restoration skill book, Withershins, is probably among the most ironically comedic pieces of literature in the Elder Scrolls franchise. It tells the tale of an Argonian named Zaki, who is convinced that he can't have a conversation that doesn't flow in alphabetical order. And most of the book focuses on this character's dialogue with another man who thinks the protagonist is just outright delusional. But sure enough, if you read through all of the spoken dialogue, you'll notice that each time a character begins a new sentence, that sentence will start with a progressing word in the alphabet. So the first phrase spoken in the book starts with the letter A. The next dialogue phrase starts with a word beginning with the letter B, and so on and so forth. Towards the end of the writings, Zaki does begin to seek treatment for his condition, but he ultimately just makes things much worse, with him now hearing every sentence totally backwards and just descending into complete insanity. Sure enough, Withershins is a Scottish term, used to describe something going counterclockwise, or contrary to the revolution of the sun, which is how our protagonist ends up hearing words by the time the book concludes. Withershins is overall a pretty funny read that admittedly has a less than ideal message. You know, don't seek help for something lest you make things even worse, but still, it's a fun thing to check out, if not a good children's story. Coming in at number 3, during Hircine's Daedric quest, Ill Met by Moonlight, the Daedric god of the hunt, while taking the form of a spectral stag, will demand that the Dragonborn track down a specifically disrespectful werewolf named Sinding to Bloated Man's Grotto, and join a small hunting party of his worshippers he's assembled there to butcher this certain wolfman once and for all. When you finally arrive at the location, you'll find a hectic scene. Many of the hunters are badly wounded. The sky has transformed to a bleak red color, and Sinding seems unstoppable. you'll ultimately get to choose whether to slay the beast, or in fact turn on the remaining hunters and make sure that Sindine escapes. Either way, Hircine will still somehow be pleased with you, and reward the Dovahkiin generously. But that aside, I want you to pay attention to the reddish-orange sky again. You see, it's being illuminated not by a normal sun or star, but instead by a celestial body known in the Elder Scrolls as a Bloodmoon. And while it certainly looks impressive, there's actually some really cool significance behind this object in the sky that many players may not realize. You see, a Bloodmoon is what we call the planet of Secunda after Hircine has turned it red, and it's meant to symbolize one of Hircine's legendary Great Hunts, which can vary radically in scale and scope, but only occur once every few hundred years. Hircine's very rare Great Hunts are a big deal to the Daedric god, as he feels they symbolize everything he's all about, and oftentimes they can be a major event in the Elder Scrolls universe, sometimes pitting armies of hunters against thousands upon thousands of wild beasts in these earth-shattering confrontations that could change the course of history in certain regions. In fact, the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind's Bloodmoon DLC follows the player's efforts to limit the damage of one of Hircine's larger hunts on the island of Solstheim under such a red moon. So, considering its appearance again in Skyrim, and the fact that we are very much hunting something, it seems that our mission to kill Sindine is indeed part of the same, very rare ritual that Morrowind's DLC was all about, just on a much smaller scale. Coming in at number 3, we take a trip to the court of Riften, where we can meet Anoriel and Umid. Anoriel is the Bosmer steward to the Jarl Laelia Lawgiver, acting as an advisor and intermediary to her subjects. She's also secretly in the pocket of Maven Blackbriar, but that's neither here nor there. Umid occupies the position of Housecarl. He's basically the Jarl's bodyguard. Alright, so what leads me to bring these two up? Well, they seem to be having a bit of a secret affair with one another. Some dialogue that can be overheard between the pair when they're in close proximity and away from prying eyes suggests that the two are very much more than mere co-workers. Take a listen.
My sweet, are we still meeting later for combat training?
Of course. Your training isn't complete yet.
I'll look forward to it then.
Never fear, lovebirds. Your secret is safe here. For fourth spot, speaking of affairs, let's talk a bit about Vittoria Vici. She's an Imperial noblewoman who acts as the highest-ranking East Empire Company official in all of Skyrim. Oh, yeah, and she's also the cousin of the Emperor, Titus Mede II himself. Currently, Vittoria is engaged, and her upcoming wedding is one of the most talked about events in all of Tamriel, as despite her strong connections to the Empire, she's marrying into a proud Nord family, the Snowshods, that are notably staunch supporters of the Stormcloaks. The impending marriage is seen as a massive step towards reconciliation for Skyrim, and has been the talk of the province for quite some time. Later on, during the Dark Brotherhood questline, we of course have to assassinate Vittoria during said wedding, and absolute chaos erupts, so much for reconciliation. But I digress. Contrary to her major impending marriage, it would appear that Miss Vici might be having an inappropriate relationship with someone who is not her fiancé. Interestingly, prior to the wedding, Vittoria doesn't even live with the man she's supposed to marry. Instead, she shares a home with a fellow East Empire Company official named Aquilius Oresius. But it's not just a roof these two individuals share. They also share a bed, too. Yeah, they literally sleep together. Unfortunately, Bethesda doesn't do a whole lot to shed light on what's going on between these two. Neither Aquilius nor Vittoria even actually have any recorded dialogue at all between each other, and no other characters share rumors of an affair, which you'd imagine people would do given the significance of Vittoria's engagement. So it's possible that maybe the devs just made a bit of an oopsie and accidentally assigned Aquilius a side in Vittoria's bed and also assigned him her house too, I guess? It just doesn't make any sense what's going on, really. But I'm sure Vittoria's fiancé wouldn't be too happy to hear about what's happening. Halfway through at number 5, while we're talking about Vittoria's fiancé, I figure now's a good time to mention that he might not exactly be squeaky clean either. If the player approaches Asgeir during his wedding to Vittoria, the dialogue he'll say varies depending upon the Dovahkiin's gender. He will humorously and politely tell male characters to stay the oblivion away from his bride, like so.
Now, fella, let's not get too close to my new bride, eh?
However, he'll lightly flirt with female Dragonborns.
Well, aren't you a pretty thing? Should my new bride be worried?
Okay, so this is definitely not quite as bad as sleeping in the same bed as other folks, but still, it's neat how Bethesda made sure this character, who only has a handful of lines mind you, addresses the player so personally. 6th, if the Hearthfire DLC has been installed, and the player owns a property with one or more adopted children living there, it's possible, upon returning home one day, to be accosted by one of those kids, who will claim the basement has recently been infested with Skeevers, begging that you drive them out. You'll then be given an objective to do just that. Go into the basement and murder all the Skeevers to death. While a fun little miscellaneous quest, this unmarked objective might be a sly nod to a rather cyclical theme we've seen explored in previous Elder Scrolls quests. Back in Morrowind, the first Fighters Guild quest, called Exterminators, sent you to clear a Dunmer woman named Jeraine Thelos' basement of Skeevers. Then, in the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, the side quest, A Rat Problem, would see the hero of Kvatch sent to visit the home of another Dunmer, this one named Arvenna Thelos. Yep, same Thelos family, to help her with a similar Skeever situation in her basement. Though Arvenna didn't want us to kill her Skeevers. Instead, she wanted us to help protect them from predators. Now, in Skyrim, we're going back to the basics, to run the little critters out of a basement yet again. Perhaps it's unconnected and this is all just a bit of a coincidence, but hey, on the bright side, at least we all learned something new about Morrowind and Oblivion, right? Next, when developing Skyrim's Dragonborn DLC, Bethesda really did not cut any corners. And one of the more minor, yet still really cool things they did, was rewrite and record the dialogue of the island's bandit population. Something I found quite funny is that a lot of the new bandit dialogue we get to hear on Solstheim is really based on lines we hear from normal bandits in Skyrim, with some slight Morrowind flavor added in. Take a listen.
Retire someday, get myself an island.
Retire someday, get myself a place on the mainland.
Might pay off my bounty this time. Walk into the city a free man.
Might pay off my bounty this time, walking to Raven Rock a free man.
I'll never do another span in that stinking jail. Rather die than give myself up.
Ain't going back to prison. Rather die in the ash.
Coming in at number 8, Sheogorath's Daedric quest, The Mind of Madness, will see the player gain access to the Pelagius wing of Solitude's Blue Palace, a section of the castle which allegedly hasn't been entered in literal hundreds of years. And when we find it, it will be filled with dust, grime, and general signs of abandonment. When in this wing, as we walk down a hallway, we'll be teleported to the Mind of Pelagius, a plane of oblivion controlled by Sheogorath, Daedric god of insanity, and he will force the Dovahkiin to complete all sorts of trials to gain his favor. But once we do that, we'll be teleported back to the hallway we started off in. And from there, we can just turn around and walk out, completing the quest. However, if rather than do a 180 and just leave, the player instead decides to continue down the hallway, you'll eventually reach a room below a staircase, with some pretty surprising things inside. The small room is filled with lit lanterns, open drinks, exposed food, various books, and even a small bedroll. Someone is living down here. But who? This is honestly a really perplexing mystery, as again, this entire region of the palace is supposed to be abandoned, i.e. nobody comes here, yet clearly someone is. And to make matters worse, gaining access to the Pelagius wing of Solitude's palace is quite the hassle. We need to get a specifically well-secured key, so whoever is living here probably has some good internal access. We know that Sibyl Stentor, one of the court advisors, is secretly a vampire, yet she has a room and a bed that we can watch her sleep in all the time, so it seems unlikely that she could be the culprit. Whoever lives here is a mystery, but it's someone in Solitude's royal court. Getting close to the end here at number 9, how could it be a 10 Tiny Details video without at least one reference to the Soul Cairn? That spooky plane of oblivion where the souls of those who have been soul-trapped are doomed to aimlessly wander for the rest of time. All over this realm are freaky scenes and really thrilling pieces of environmental storytelling. Though something I found really neat is east of the central castle in the cairn, we can find the bones of a dragon, with an orcish war axe driven into its skull, as well as multiple arrows surrounding the remains. Furthermore, in close proximity to this dragon should be 3 orcish souls just chilling out. It doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to piece together what Bethesda's trying to represent here. It seems as though this dragon attempted to do battle with a group of orcs and everybody lost. The orcs took out the dragon, yet somehow everyone got soul-trapped and ended up here too. I guess the only way to win certain battles is not to fight at all. And finally, last on our list, Erandur is a Dunmer priest of Mara who has recently journeyed to the city of Dawnstar, which he believes is currently under the influence of Vermina, the Daedric goddess of nightmares. He'll offer the Dragonborn the quest, Waking Nightmare, which will see the pair of you head on over to Nightcaller Temple and clear it of a small onslaught of Vermina's worshippers, before you yourself are ultimately given the choice to side with Erandur and defeat Vermina, or betray him instead and side with the Daedric god. But this mission aside, something really neat is that all the way over in Shore's Stone, a small mining community just north of Riften, we can meet a character named Silga. Silga will claim that she's currently unable to work very much, as not too long ago, she was wounded in a mining accident, and in fact almost passed away, barely being saved by a random priest of Mara who was passing through on his way to Dawnstar. It would seem Erandur is more than likely that priest of Mara who saved Silga's life not too long ago. The timelines match up perfectly, and he's the only priest of Mara who's recently arrived in Dawnstar. So yeah, I guess this guy really is a genuinely good person. All the more reason you probably shouldn't stab him in the back. And with that, we are going to wrap up yet another 10 Tiny Details you may still have missed in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Part 55. Lordy. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Which of what we analyzed today caught you the most off guard? And what Easter eggs or hidden secrets and factoids do you know of that you don't think we've covered just yet? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings and subscriptions are very much appreciated, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.